Now, today marks International Tourism Resilience Day, a global observance proclaimed by the United Nations to highlight the importance of building a strong, adaptable tourism sector that can withstand economic shocks, crises, and disruptions while driving sustainable growth. Now, resilient tourism supports economic development, job creation, conservation, and community empowerment, especially in countries where tourism contributes significantly to livelihoods and cultural preservation. In the Nigeria context, resilience in tourism remains a key priority for development stakeholders who have called for stronger infrastructure, security, and strategic partnerships to unlock the nation's vast tourism potential. Nigeria continues to work on policies and frameworks that support inclusive, sustainable tourism advancement, drawing on its rich cultural heritage, festivals, natural sites, and creative industries to attract visitors and strengthen domestic and international tourism growth.
Now, today, as the world observes the International Tourism Resilience Day, we turn our focus to Nigeria's growing tourism sector and the strategies being implemented to make it more sustainable and more revenue generating. Well, crisis-proof and crisis-proof. Now, joining us to shed light on this effort is the Director General of the Nigeria Tourism Development Authority. He was once a media practitioner, but is now driving that strategic seat in the Nigeria's Tourism Development Authority. His name is Mr. Olayiwola Awakan. Thank you for joining us. What a delight to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
Okay, now, taking a look, a glimpse at Nigeria's tourism sector, it presents such a salacious, lavish serendipity, but marred by misadventure and what you call government's lackadaisical approach in building such an immense potential. How would what reforms are you driving in a matter of short term that we could see in changing the reality of Nigeria's tourism sector?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I got appointed into office in October. In September, then I resumed in October, and it's been an adventurous journey for me so far.
So you've spent close to 5 months.
Well, just let's say 4 months.
Okay.
Let's say 4 months. And the few months I have spent, I've seen quite a lot, and I've done quite a lot. Let me use this opportunity to appreciate and thank President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for considering me worthy of this position. I've been in the creative sector, in the tourism sector for over two decades or more now, and but from the journalistic angle. Covering tourism, covering arts, covering culture, and personally myself, I'm a creative because I'm a playwright, I'm an actor, I'm a dancer, I'm a choreographer, I'm a poet, and all that. So I call myself a genre thespian. I've seen that Nigeria has vast tourism potential, and this has become a cliche. Everyone says that. But since my assumption of office, I've discovered a few things that we need to put in the right perspective for us to get it right at this time. One of it is intentionality. Yes, we have these tourist destinations. We have the potential is so huge and massive, but how have we, put in this intentional act to make sure that we develop it to get the returns, to get the to get the revenue that we need to get from this particular sector. So that intentionality is one thing. The other thing that I've seen is individuals in their own rights have been contributing their quota, have been doing a lot, maybe in staccato from you are individual, you're this. There has not been this synergy amongst the private sector, the public sector, and all that, investors and all, so as to be able to drive it on the same path. That's another thing. Then the other thing I've seen as well is storytelling is a key aspect of tourism. I always say
that gives you an undue advantage in driving the sector.
In driving the sector. I always say this anytime I have an opportunity, that look, if we look at our heritage, our tradition, our culture, and we want to turn them into stories, Nigeria is a macrocosm of stories. If we tell our stories on daily basis for 365 days, we will not repeat a particular
So
story.
now, specifically, how do we own our story in the tourism sector? Because it looks like something that holds onto a huge orphan in terms of storytelling to the world.
So how do we own it? Simple. All we need to do is to tell these stories. All we need to do is to leverage technology. All we need to do is if Hollywood, for instance, should have a pinch of exposure to the stories that we have, they can turn them around to get international tourists into this country. So what I have done is trying to leverage technology to come on board to see how we can bring these stories. For instance, I was in Kebbi State and I know what I saw, I know what I heard about their unique stories. I was in Katsina State, I know what I saw, I know what I heard about their unique stories. And these are stories that we can turn around. If you go to Ile-Ife, for instance, Ile-Ife, they celebrate festivals on daily basis for 365 days. Just a day that is left out without celebration. If we turn these stories and we put them together into plots and into characters and all that, do you know how many international tourists we invite down to the country? If we partner, just like Mr. President has asked us to do, PPP initiative is very key. If we partner with the private sector, which I say that tourism is private sector driven, because as a government, as a public servant, what I would do is I have a limited time to spend in office, but whatever initiative that I have put in place, when I leave and I don't have the private sector fully involved in it, then it might live with me when the next person comes and is not happy. But if the private sector has 70% or thereabout involvement, it is his business. It would want to keep it on going. That's sustainability. So it is very key for us to work on this infrastructure, private sector involvement, and all of that.
Now, holistically speaking, in the big picture of things, it sounds amazing when you explain it. But when you look at the nitty-gritty details, the talking subject is meant to be on tourism resilience.
Sure.
What does that actually mean in practical terms?
Okay, in practical terms, I think what we need to do, just like I said, the first thing is intentionality. If you're talking about resilience, we're talking about sustainability. How do we sustain the tourism sector to be able to drive our economy for good? Now we need to put in place infrastructure. All the tourist destinations that we have in this country, I do make instance of, for instance, Ikogosi. If you go to Ikogosi, what has made Ikogosi to be what it is today is because of the private sector involvement and the infrastructure that has been put in place there. Now, Ikogosi is private sector and the state government. If you go to Olumorok, for instance, it is the private sector involvement that is there that has made it to be what it is today. So what we want to do is to partner with the private sector to ensure that we replicate all of these at the other tourist destinations that we have. I was in Riyadh in November, and I know what I saw in Riyadh. These states or these countries that have used tourism to develop their economy do not have, up to a pinch of what we have in Nigeria. But they have turned around their nothing to something. So what we need to do is just to be intentional, work on our infrastructure, work on private sector involvement. Investors should come on board. And once we collaborate and synergize, I think beyond the sky is our limit.
Now, you mentioned something very pivotal about infrastructure, because I think poor infrastructure remains a challenge in Nigeria as well when you bring about things such as banditry, terrorism. We've had several reports where we've had forest guards who are killed, who are shot, who are ambushed. What is in place concretely to, avert these type of issues?
Okay, so I think I'll also go down to say partnership. Now, in terms of security, the government is doing its best. That's the federal government. You've seen, occasions where, the president in his good, will has met with chief, service chiefs and all that, and they are putting a whole lot of things together. But I will tell you that I went to Katsina State, and I got to a place, Adobe, Tukeshe. I got there, it's just 30 minutes or thereabout to Niger Republic. And it was not as it's been portrayed out there. I went there seamlessly. I met with the head of the community and we moved around. The same thing happened in Kebbi State. So it's not as it's been amplified. Yes, there is a security issue. Then the federal government is working on that to put that in place. But as far as our mandate is concerned at NTDA, what we do is we market Nigeria. What we do is we promote, we develop, and we regulate the tourism sector. We want to focus on the positives. Let's use the positive to override the negatives, because we are the ones that are telling our stories and we need to tell the stories rightly.
Okay, now let's take an overview of Nigeria's tourism sector. As of today, it contributes just a paltry 3.9% to the GDP. And
Yes.
you look at the theme for this year, moving from crisis to impactful development. So now, do we have a clear national tourism roadmap? And do we have a portal that would showcase Nigeria's rich tourism heritage to the outside world that they could visit as like a first stop shop to all these routes?
Okay, so I would say this is work in progress. Just like I mentioned initially, that there have been individual efforts put in place to ensure that we develop the tourism sector. But since I came on board, I've been engaging the private sector. What we want to do is to have a one-stop shop, just like you said, where people can have access to the tourist destinations that we have in Nigeria, where people can have access to hospitality that we have in Nigeria. Because if you have the endorsement of the NCDA in all of this, that's been put out. And the ministry is also doing a lot. The minister, Barrister Anatu Musa Musawa, is doing her best to ensure that all these have been put in the right perspective by working with all the various agencies under the ministry. So what we're doing is to ensure that we harness all of this together. It's a work in progress. We're working on this as destination Nigeria Destination 2030. I'm driving my campaign with Niger flavor, because Nigeria is a vibe. Nigeria is a vibe. In our music, in our culture, in our food, in our movies, in our name it, our clothing, Nigeria is a vibe. So the Niger flavor thing is what I'm using to drive it. And very soon I'll be having an engagement with the stakeholders, and where I will, put out my strategy plan, and we'll move out from there. Immediately I got into office, within 2-3 weeks, I had the Niger flavor unveiled, Destination Abuja. So what we want to do is we want to see how we can replicate what we have in terms of what is it called, Dirty December, across board, and not just concentrating on a few places. So the next time we'll be having it, it's going to be across the 6 geopolitical zones to cover the tourist destination across. You talked about the GDP. If you were to look deeply into the value chain of tourism, which is massive, transportation is in tourism, ecotourism is there, we have religious tourism, we have, when you go for a festival, for instance, I just came back from Arugungu Fishing Festival, a beautiful festival at that. For the people who converged on Kebbi State for that festival, the returns of that into the economy. People are going, there's going to be merchandising, people are going to buy things, they are going to, all the hotels were locked down, transportation and all of it. So the value chain of tourism, if you are to look at it from the right perspective, is going to contribute more than that percentage
it shows
that we
the
have.
potential for foreign exchange is very high. The
potential is very high
and
for
promising.
job creation and all that. So, but it's work in progress. Like I said, we've started on the right path. We are putting a lot of things together. We are seeing how we can have visibility at the International Tourist Market and Expo, which I have inaugurated a joint committee of the private sector. I'm working with FTAN strongly. So that committee, we're working on having a good presence at international tourism markets.
Okay, so what about the host communities, the people in these communities? Like you mentioned the Arugungu Fishing Festival. How do you ensure that they benefit from what you're trying to do?
All right, okay, thank you. That's another unique aspect of tourism. I say it that tourism is community-based, because take it or leave it, whatever tourist destinations we're talking about is domiciled in a particular community.
Yes.
So part of the initiatives I've put in place to work on is to see how we can collaborate with all the traditional rulers in Nigeria. I did recently sign an MOU with the Ooni of Ife, so which we're going to be driving that. What we want to do is let's meet with these traditional rulers. They are the ones who understand the festivals, who understand the tourist destinations. Many tourist destinations have not been discovered. I'll tell you that. For instance, immediately I got appointed. There's this monarch in Ogun State in Yewa, which I got. We got talking. And he mentioned to me that what we have in Ikogosi, the warm spring that we have in Ikogosi, there's something like that in Yewa that is even like bigger than what we have in Ikogosi, but that has not been discovered. Nobody's talking about it. So, but if we involve the monarchs, involve the indigenes of they will not see it as something that is alien to them. They will see that they are involved in it, and that is the inclusivity that we're talking about, that will bring about the the commemoration that we're having today.
Okay. Now, Taking a deep look into Nigeria's tourism sector presents one very thought-provoking reality, and that's that aspect of reparation of our stolen artifacts.
Yes.
So, what role is the Nigeria Tourism Development Authority doing to ensure that we recover our stolen artifacts that represent our rich cultural heritage?
So, in that regard, there are many agencies under the ministry. The ministry is doing its best. We recovered quite a number, recently from Germany and all of that. What we're doing is to ensure that all this comes to play. It adds to the tourism asset of this country. But there's an agency that is saddled with that responsibility. Just like we handle, tourism, there's an agency that handles museums and all that, artifacts and all that. So what they are doing is they are working with the ministry, with the minister, to ensure that all of this, we have recovered quite a number, we have repatriated quite a number of these artifacts into Nigeria, and effort is still ongoing to get more back to the country.
All right, Benga, you asked a phenomenal question about our artifacts, and your answer was good and fine. But I also have a question that piggybacks a little bit on what Benga just asked, and that's in the area of ecotourism and protecting our environment from degradation, from plundering, from all of this. And what I've been seeing a lot in Nigeria is that there's so much deforestation going on, which is quite the opposite of what the world is doing. Other countries are struggling to grow more trees, grow 100 trees a day,
in fact,
plant trees.
Of a resilient tourism.
Absolutely. But here we're doing the opposite. We're cutting down trees left, right, and center. What do you say towards this?
I think we need to change our orientation towards this. This year we're going to be having the first ecotourism summit, which we've started, having conversations with the stakeholders in the ecotourism sector. We have quite a number of parks, conservative parks in Nigeria. If you go to Taraba, for instance, there's the Gashaka-Gumti National Park and all that. These are all meant to preserve our, the natural habitats that we have in this country. And what we need to do is to change our orientation. Enlightenment needs to go more out, because ecotourism is also a very vital aspect of tourism in this country. And until we own it, until we start working rightly to ensure that we preserve our natural habitat, which can attract quite a number of foreign exchange into this country, which can attract quite a number of international tourists to this country. We need just to do it rightly. So we've started that conversation. We're going to hold a summit. We're going to have the stakeholders in the ecotourism, because this is what helps us for environmental sustainability.
Okay, because of our time, which is fast spent, can you look into the camera? I believe you've traveled to Dubai, and can you promise Nigeria, because a look into our tourism sector, despite being salaciously lavish with a huge serendipity, it leaves that prodigal reality of a nation. Can you tell Nigerians that under your stewardship, you will make Nigeria like what Dubai is to UAE? What you will bring such impact to Nigeria?
Well, I would say, without mincing words, that Nigeria is, like I always say, it's a macrocosm of stories, and the tourism sector is what we can use to drive economic growth in this country. Mr. President is keen about diversification, and that is what we're focusing on. The NTDA is working, tirelessly to ensure that we revive the tourism sector for the development of the country. So we're going to do this. This is going to, be evident in the not too distant future.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ola Awakan, the Director General of the Nigeria Tourism Development Authority. Very insightful contribution from you indeed. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for here on Daybreak. It's goodbye from me, Benga Ashiru.
And I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.